Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording this. This is a special coverage on MPV, the human version. Just so people know, there's an avian version, there's a human version, and the human version seemed to have deviated from the avian version about 130 years ago. I am recording this on January 6th, all right? A lot is going on in Asia. Not much of it is being covered in Western news. It's really important to pay attention to what I have to say. All right. I don't have time to set up all the telemetry stuff at this moment in time. I'll do another show. All right. I'm going to be covering only HMPV on this show. All right. We're going to do a cursory analysis of what is being said in the news and my take on it. Okay, you need to really pay attention. There is no cause for panic or fear at this moment in time, but there's a lot of unknowns, and if my spider sense is right, there's going to be cases in the United States. Now, again, I want to go over what is being published in the news. I also want to do a quick overview of what HMPV is. It's a metapneumovirus. Okay, it causes respiratory issues, and there's no vaccine and there's no viral treatment. It is relatively benign. It's been known since 2001. But the question is, why is there so many cases happening in China right now? As of this recording, I do not know of any whole genomic sequencing of HMPV from the cases in China or in India. My understanding is they're debating in India to do a whole genome sequence. The question is, because this is a RNA virus that's negatively sensed, there's lots of mutations that can happen. Okay, so the question is, has something changed? Now, what we do know is that the main receptor for the glycoprotein, the spike that's on the virus, so HMPV has a fusion protein, we'll call it F protein. It also has a G protein, which is a glycoprotein. The glycoprotein attaches to heparan sulfate receptor. It's a heparan sulfate receptor. The glycoprotein attaches, the G protein attaches to. Then the fusion protein helps with the virus to get into the cell. So the F protein and the G protein are really important in terms of mutations. But within the infected cell, lots of innate immune system capability of the cell shut down. I did 2 videos on this. Okay, you have an SH protein that shuts down the system. You have the G protein that shuts down the system, the P protein, you also have the hold on. There's like 4 different proteins that shut down the system. Hold on, let me just load up my PowerPoint here so I can remember which one, what was everything. Okay, so you have the the SH protein, shuts off the NF kappa beta pathway for the cell to signal to go into antiviral. You have the G protein that is shutting off RIG1 and MDA5. And you have the P protein also shutting off RIG1, MDA5. And then the M2-2 protein is shutting off your MyD88 and the pathway that's tied to the mitochondria, which is MABs. Okay, so you have the M2-2, SH, the P protein, and the G protein shutting off certain capabilities. The P and the G are shutting off the pathway for RIG1. M2-2 is shutting off MABs and MyD88, and SH is shutting off the NF kappa beta pathway. That's a lot of capability in a cell or in a virus to shut down the innate immune system of a cell. Okay, again, the receptor for the G protein is the heparan sulfate receptor. Okay, the question is, are there other receptors that it's attached to? What are the mutations that are happening in the F and happening in the G? We don't know, because I don't know of any whole sequence genome of what's currently going on in China or in India. India is getting newer cases. The question is, this is not the first time India's had these cases. It's not the first time that this has been around. Again, it's been known that this virus has been around since 2001. Now the question is, has it mutated? It is a negatively sensed RNA virus. It's going to mutate, all right? So with that, is there a mutation within, let's say, the SH protein that enhances the shutting down in NF kappa beta? We don't know, all right? There's a lot of unknowns because we don't know the full genome sequencing of what's going on in China. Another data point that I'm concerned about is, why is China hiding information? Why? Why? So my understanding as of this recording is that there's 2 cases in India. And my understanding is they're pediatric cases. Again, the populations that are most at risk are individuals that are 14 years and younger, and individuals that are older than 65 plus, all right? That's the main population group. But it's also in the populations that have a compromised immune system or a compromised lung system. So if you just take it in the context of what is HMPV just by itself, without the crazy stuff that happened in 2020, it's somewhat of just a benign, not so worrisome situation. But in the context of a weakened immune system from the crisis we went through, what I call AIDS-like syndrome, in the context of compromised lung capacity for ones that have pulmonary fibrosis now, or COPD, right? Or just a declining of just the health of their lungs, right? Then getting a pulmonary infection that leads to pneumonia is problematic. Even with their immune system, let's say their CD4 effective cells and CD8 effective cells are all working, there's not AIDS-like syndrome in these patients, all right? There are many people that have declined pulmonary function. And then you take it another step, and many of those have pulmonary fibrosis. or COPD. All right. So if you develop a pneumonia, if you contract a respiratory infection, a really bad case of the flu or HMPV, and it leads to pneumonia relatively quickly, it's going to be problematic for these patients. So if you just look at it from a silo point of view, it's worrisome because China's hiding. And there seems to be cases that are just starting in India. But it would be on probably low to moderate risk category, not high. But in the context of a weakened immune system, what I call AIDS-like syndrome because of the crisis of 2020, where you have effective CD4s that are not working properly, and your CD8s aren't working properly, but your counts are okay. When you look at it in that context, many people have a disrupted immune system that may be transitory. For others, it's not transitory. On top of people that already have a pulmonary problem because of the crisis that they just went through, the pulmonary fibrosis and the COPD. So this can be very problematic. Any respiratory. That's why I was saying that it doesn't take after the crisis that we went through in 2020. It doesn't take much now of another crisis to take hold to affect the pulmonary system, especially the pulmonary system, especially if it's a respiratory virus. So it's really important to pay attention to this. All right. There are more questions than answers. Right? What's the whole genome sequencing? Is the G protein and F protein changing in such a way where it's actually more infective? You know, the infectivity rate is higher, that it can get into the cell, or that it can replicate better. All right. If that's the case, then this is getting worse, but we don't know yet. What we do know is there's lots of patients in China, and China's not sharing the data, and India now has it. All right. So this could just die down really, after a few weeks, and it's not that big of a deal. But again, you got to look at it in the context of the crisis that we went through. Many people have pulmonary dysfunction that can be as bad as pulmonary fibrosis or as bad as COPD, on top of a weakened immune system. This is the reason why I said you have to listen to me and boost up your immune system. Breaking news that Trudeau is resigning. Lovely. All right, so you have to listen, and you have to make sure that you boost up your immune system. Now, I have explained, I can't do it in this video because of the censorship on YouTube, but in subsequent videos and videos that I've done before, I have given you all the information you need, what the pillars are, what the different things you need to take, how to take it. I have told you everything you need to know. You just got to be prepared. So if anyone says they don't know what to do, you're a fucking idiot. All right? Because you just haven't been listening. So there's more questions than answers to HMPV at this moment in time. So what I want to do is go over the videos and just do a cursory understanding of what is being said and my take on it, okay? But again, keep in mind, many people around the world and also in the United States have pulmonary dysfunction. And it's in a spectrum. Some it's minor, some of it's major. The major ones are the ones that have the pulmonary fibrosis. The major ones have the COPD. There are different categories with these patients. And there are people that have a weakened immune system that is healing slowly. But if you have a weakened immune system and you're bombarded by, let's say, HMPV, or H5N1, it's harder to fight it. It's easier to get an infection that manifests into a pneumonia. So typically what it is that you get some, you get the typical symptoms of a cold, right? Right. And it may, if it's really bad, it may start showing the manifestations of bronchitis and then pneumonia, right? It's harder to breathe, right? That's usually the arc. Now, if you have a poor functioning lung now because of the crisis of 2020 and a weakened immune system, then it accelerating towards pneumonia is just faster versus someone that doesn't have a pulmonary problem, has a very strong immune system. Their ability to fight HMPV or H5N1 is much better to be able to clear the infection. So the manifestations of the pneumonia or manifestations of the bronchitis is less. But I've been saying this for 5 years. If you didn't prepare for your immune system, you are at fault for not being ready. Because I have warned people that this was going to happen. And it's looking like it's happening. Now the question is, what's the mutations? All right. HMPV baseline 2001 relative to now, what changed? Is there a change that something needs to be really looked at carefully? We don't know yet. All right. Other question is, has someone been manipulating HMPV? Has someone been manipulating Has someone been manipulating HMPV? I'll get it eventually. In the laboratory. Has there been lab manipulation or discovery that has been leaked out where they've been playing around with the glycoprotein or the fusion protein? And I suspect it is. But we don't know that yet. So it's really important to just get educated and prepare. Prepare. You need to listen. I've been saying, do simple exercises. If you've been doing these simple exercises, you've actually should be improving your lung function. If you've been listening to me and following the protocol, you've been boosting up your immune system. So you got to pay attention. If you're not doing it and something happens, the onus is on you. All right. Let's begin with doing the cursory view of this. Now, I'd like to just remind the audience before I start. This is not playing. Hold on. It's just what I don't like with some of the videos is that it just is video and it's just music in the background. Okay, before I start, please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Okay, I'm not saying these things for my health. All right, you need to listen. You need to listen. All right. So make sure you subscribe. There's going to be a lot of censorship that's going to be coming down the road here, all right, if HMPV is problematic. We don't know if it is. I'm not saying it is right now. I'm just saying that the risks are elevating, and there's an awful lot of people that have a suppressed immune system because of the crisis we're in. And we also have many people that have pulmonary dysfunction. That's a fact. All right. Now the question is, does HMPV manifest worse because of this situation in the society? And when it does manifest worse, when someone says, well, I'm healthy, I got a great immune system, I don't have pulmonary dysfunction, I don't have to worry. No, you do have to worry, because if your society that you live in starts having a lot of cases of HMPV, then it's going to mutate and it's going to get worse. And it won't matter anymore if you don't have pulmonary dysfunction. All right. That's why it's really important to pay attention to what's going on. There's no vaccine for HMPV. There is a vaccine that's in the works for avian avian MPV. So there's avian version of MPV and human version of MPV. The vaccine that's out there that's in the works is for avian MPV, not human MPV. Now, Moderna working on one that is tied to also RSV. Now, it's interesting that RSV does have a similar genome kind of structure to MPV viruses. They're closely related, but when I looked at the homology between the two viruses, there's not very strong homology there. So, so they definitely aren't. It's a HMPV is not a manipulation from RSV. That didn't happen. All right. It's just that the homology is really low. All right. There's some areas of certain proteins that you might have a homology of about 38%, but that's about the highest it gets. So based on my quick analysis on this, but most of the proteins have extremely low homology between RSV and HMPV. Now there's strong homology between HMPV and the avian version of MPV. So the human and avian version of MPV, there's strong homology there. It makes sense because of the deviation took place, we think, at about 130 years ago, based on statistical modeling, but that could be wrong. Who knows? But has it been modified in the laboratory? Has it been played around with? Did something leak? We don't know. All right. And China's not telling a whole lot, which scares a lot of people. Okay. So make sure you subscribe to the channels, the 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Also, please help support the work by sharing the links and asking your social media to follow me. You can also follow me on X. I have 2 channels on X. I have GETTR. Right? Follow me. There's going to be censorship. And different ways to follow me through the podcast, through the different channels, through the WhatsApp group, through X or GETTR. You'll be able to get notifications. Right? So please pay attention. Follow me. Ask your social media, your followers, your network to follow me. All right. What I have to say, I'll get you through this. All right. But you got to pay attention and you got to do what I tell you to do. All right. And if you do that, you're increasing the chances of being able to weather the storm. All right. I'm the most comprehensive in these kind of situations. Just trust me. All right. I'll get you through it. All right, this is Economic Times. Hopefully they don't have music in the background.
Your barber desk works great, but he doesn't work like Wealthfront. Wealthfront keeps your investments working, optimizing them.
The Ministry of Health has confirmed 2 cases of human metapneumovirus cases in Karnataka in India. These cases were identified through routine surveillance for respiratory viral pathogens under ICMR's ongoing efforts to monitor respiratory illnesses nationwide. While HMPV is already known to circulate globally, including in India, the ministry emphasized there has been no unusual surge in influenza-like illness or severe acute respiratory illness cases, according to the current data from ICMR and the Integrated Disease Surveillance Program. The 2 confirmed cases involved infants, a 3-month-old female infant diagnosed with HMPV following hospitalization for bronchopneumonia in Bengaluru, She has since been discharged. And an 8-month-old male infant who tested positive for HMPV on January 3, 2025.
Now remember what, okay, so they're both infants, less than a year old. Remember I was saying that that group is going to be extremely problematic because their immune system isn't fully working yet. Right? It takes 6 months for it to really start to function. And it's that first year that that you got to be worried about. So this is playing right into it. 8 months and 3 months totally makes sense. All right. So they don't have really a good immune system to be able to fight something that is relative, that could be problematic for people and this is the reason why, that if you have a not working immune system, if your immune system is down for whatever reason, that it's more susceptible. All right. So so that's a data point. A data point is boom, weakened immune system, either because you're an infant and your immune system isn't developed yet, or you're an adult and you have a weakened immune system for whatever reason. So, and both patients had bronchopneumonia. Bronchopneumonia. All right, so bronchopneumonia. All right, so we have patients that have pneumonia, bronchopneumonia, young, in India. Those are the facts.
Bronchopneumonia. He is now recovering. However, concerns about HMPV are growing globally. In Malaysia, cases rose sharply in 2024 with 327 reported cases, a 45% increase from 225 cases in 2023. China's CDC has also flagged concerns about HMPV are growing globally. In Malaysia, cases rose sharply in 2024 with 327 reported cases, a 45% increase from 225 cases.
Okay, so we have China's increased cases, but only in the hundreds from prior year in Malaysia. So we have a low case count.
He has also flagged HMPV as concern, particularly for children, immunocompromised individuals, and elderly, who are more susceptible to severe outcomes. According to a study published in Lancet Global Health, 1% of acute lower respiratory infection related to deaths in children under 5 can be attributed to HMPV. Currently, there is no vaccine or specific antiviral.
Here's the problem: is the data sets for that analysis is assuming that was. Here's the problem: is a lot of the data that's coming in. What's the percentage of certain things hurting you? Right, certain pathogens may be hurting you. That's like a pre-COVID kind of. A lot of that data is pre-COVID data. The question is, how much did COVID change the dynamics of other pathogens and the susceptibility of those pathogens because of the pulmonary dysfunction and because of the weakened immune system or the AIDS-like syndrome? Okay, there's not a lot of data on that. Dynamics probably have changed. Okay, so all right, so we have 2 patients, pediatric, 3 months and 8 months old, in India, bronchopneumonia, and they recovered. And then there are a surge of cases in Malaysia in the 300s.
Treatment for HMPV. So now let's delve deeper into what HMPV is, its symptoms, how it spreads, and the steps you can take.
I want to make sure you said
starting with what is HMPV. Under published in Lancet Global Health, is individuals and elderly who are more susceptible to severe outcomes. According to a study published in Lancet Global Health, 134 cases, a 45% increase from 225 cases in 2023. China's CDC has also rose sharply in 2024 with 327 reported cases, a 45% increase from 225 cases in 2023. China's CDC are growing globally. In Malaysia, cases rose sharply in 2024 with 327 reported cases, a 45% increase from 225 cases in 2023. China's CDC has also flagged HMPV as concern, particularly for children, immunocompromised individuals, and elderly, who are more susceptible to severe outcomes. According to a study published in Lancet Global Health, 1% of acute lower respiratory infection related to deaths in children under 5 can be attributed to HMPV. Currently, there is no vaccine or specific antiviral treatment for HMPV. So now let's delve deeper into what HMPV is, its symptoms, how it spreads, and the steps you can take to protect yourself. Starting with what is human metapneumovirus or HMPV. First identified in 2001, HMPV is part of the Pneumoviridae family. It's a respiratory virus that causes both upper and lower respiratory infection. While most people experience flu-like symptoms, vulnerable groups like young children, older adults, and immunocompromised individuals can face more severe complications, including bronchitis and pneumonia. So here are the symptoms you need to watch out for. Common symptoms of HMPV include cough, fever, nasal congestion, shortness of breath. In severe cases, these symptoms can progress to bronchitis or even pneumonia. The incubation period typically lasts 3 to 6 days, and recovery can take several more days, depending on the severity of the infection. How does HMPV spread? HMPV is highly contagious and spreads in multiple ways. These are through droplets from coughing or sneezing, by touching contaminated surface, and then your mouth, nose, or eyes, through close personal contacts like handshakes. The virus can remain active on surfaces at room temperature, making hygiene a crucial part of prevention. In temperate climates, HMPV circulates seasonally, especially from the late winter to spring. Here are the preventive measures. There is currently no vaccine or specific treatment for HMPV, but prevention is key. Here is what you can do. You should wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. You should avoid touching your face with unwashed hands. You should clean commonly used surfaces like doorknobs and toys. You should stay home if you feel sick. If you or your children are showing cold-like symptoms, practice good respiratory hygiene. Cover your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing, and avoid sharing utensils or kissing others. Testing and diagnosis. If you suspect an HMPV infection, consult a healthcare provider. Diagnosis typically involves testing respiratory secretions through advanced techniques like nucleic acid amplification tests or immunofluorescence. How big a threat it is? According to CDC, HMPV can be deadly for those with underlying health conditions. For children under 5, the virus accounts for 1% of acute lower respiratory infection-related deaths globally. Without a vaccine, treatment is currently limited to managing symptoms, making awareness and prevention more critical. As cases continue to rise globally,
the question here, and I'll finish this video pretty soon here, but the question is, did something change on the glycoprotein and did something change on the fusion protein as cases are spreading in China? Seems like it's slightly moving towards India, but this is endemic, all right? HMPV has been known since 2001, and it does circulate, but it's a kind of a low circulation, right? There's other viruses that are more common, right? The question is, why is China hiding? What's going on with HMPV in their country right now? Did something change, either as it's circulating in the population in endemic form or lab manipulation? And the worry that I have is that, again, when you look at the data from this, from the WHO, they'll say, well, it's just 1% of the population for patients at risk, pediatric and elderly. Okay, but that's in the context of a world pre-COVID. In a context of post-COVID, where you have many people that have pulmonary dysfunction, either through pulmonary fibrosis or COPD, or just worsening pulmonary function that hasn't really truly manifested into a COPD or or or, or pulmonary fibrosis yet, they're not going to be able to weather a bronchopneumonia infection as well. And also in the context of a weakened immune system. So this data pre-COVID may not be fully correct now in a post-COVID era. And this is why I was saying, like almost 2 years ago, that the aftershock of the COVID era is going to echo, because it's caused problems in the society in terms of a weakened immune system and pulmonary dysfunction. And this is where the doctors are totally missing the boat. They're looking at a data set. When they're looking at this stuff, they're looking at data sets that are primarily pre-COVID data sets.
Informed and practicing preventive measures can help curb the spread of HMPV. So stay safe, stay informed, and stay healthy.
All right. Okay, so that's the first video. I have some people that are on X Spaces, so just to get them up to speed here. HMPV is a human metapneumonia virus that comes off of an avian metapneumonia virus. The split seems to be about 130 years ago, maybe a little bit more, maybe 200 years ago. But that's using statistical modeling, and maybe that's accurate, maybe it's not. All right. The first case of HMPV, the human version, was in 2001. The first detection of avian version of MPV was in the 1970s. And there are 4 proteins that shut down the immune system with this virus. And this is the reason why, for children that are very young, let's say months old, the 2 cases that happened in India were 3 months and 8 months. Well, the immune system is not robust enough, right? And the infant is depending on the antibodies that it's getting from the mother through breastfeeding. Now, after about 6 months, their immune system starts to kick in. But that first year is problematic. And children, anyone that has had children, know that children get sick all the time, and that's how they build up an immunity. All right. So that's what's going on with the pediatric patients, 3 months and 8 months old in India with HMPV. And they ended up getting bronchopneumonia. Okay. Now, with these 4 proteins that are in the virus, it shuts out the innate immune system in the cells. So if you have someone that has an immune system that isn't working properly for the adaptive part of the immune system, because you have an innate and an adaptive. Children that are really, really young, their adaptive isn't online yet. People that are older, their adaptive immune system starts to wane, independent of COVID. All right. COVID just makes everything more complicated. So the COVID era. So, all right. So you have a virus that's in the cell that's shutting down the innate immune system in the cell with 4 proteins. The SH shuts down the NF-kappa beta. You have the P protein that shuts down RIG1. You have the G protein that's shutting down RIG1. You have the M2-2 that's shutting down the pathway through MABs. The mitochondria signals that tell the cell to go into antiviral mode, all right, and to try to go into apoptosis. And then you also have M2.2 protein in the virus that shuts down MyD88, all right, and that shuts down another pathway to prevent the cell to go into antiviral mode. So there's a lot. So when you have a weakened adaptive immune system, you can understand that these proteins, by shutting down the innate immune system, why it's problematic for the elderly and the pediatric patients. All right, so that's what's going on with the shutting down of the immune system. Now let's go to another video to find out, okay, my big question, as I'm cursoring through these videos, I want to know, why is China hiding the cases, and what's the genomic sequence of what's going around in China? Has something changed? We don't know the answer to that, but those are two big questions that need to be answered, because I suspect that if there's a big surge in China, as what the Indian news is saying, if that's the case, if that's the truth, why is there a gigantic surge in HMPV in China? Why? This is an endemic thing that's relatively low cases. So either it's changed, glycoprotein mutated to attach to the heparan sulfate receptor, or maybe attached to it has an affinity to another receptor that we don't know about. Maybe the fusion protein became more functional, more robust. Maybe something within the innate immune system with the SH protein changed. Who knows? Did something change because of just circulation, or was there a lab manipulation? These are questions. They're not answers, but something is happening. What is it? All right, so let me play another one. I'm tired of commercials. Yeah, see, this is another one of those videos where it's just, music, it's just a bunch of text. I can't stand that crap. All right, let's try this one.
In other news, after China, Malaysia has reported a major rise in human metapneumovirus, also known as HMPV cases in recent months. In 2024, Malaysia saw 327 HMPV cases, which is a 45% rise from 225 cases reported in 2023. Given the rise, the Malaysian Health Ministry has urged people to remain vigilant and also practice preventive measures such as washing hands with soap, wearing a face mask, and covering the nose and mouth while coughing or sneezing. However, the ministry emphasized that HMPV is not a new disease, adding that a spike in respiratory tract infections at the beginning and end of the year is an expected phenomenon. Concerns over HMPV began after China's Disease Control Authority recently piloted a monitoring system specifically for pneumonia of unknown origin, anticipating a seasonal spike in infections. The move further prompted neighboring countries to monitor the situation closely. And India has also urged the World Health Organization, WHO, to share timely updates. In a statement, however, India's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare said that the situation in China is not unusual in view of the ongoing flu season in the country. However, it informed the Indian Council of Medical Research, the ICMR, that it has already put a strong surveillance system in place to monitor influenza and severe acute respiratory illnesses. Meanwhile, the health authorities in capital city New Delhi have issued guidelines to ensure preparedness for potential health challenges. Hospitals have been instructed to promptly report influenza-like illnesses and severe acute respiratory infection cases as well. Strict isolation protocols and the use of universal precautions for suspected cases have been made compulsory in New Delhi.
I mean, I'm gonna bring up the elephant in the room here. All right, if this takes hold and there's something serious about it through the mutation or some sort of lab manipulation, the probability of another fucking pandemic in the world during a Trump administration is like, the probability of that is almost fucking zero. There's a takedown that's happening here. Only if this is really taking hold in Asia. So we got Malaysian cases, we have a couple cases that are pediatric in India. There's a bunch of cases, and we don't have a lot of clarity on what's going on in China. So if it's real, this is orchestrated. If it's endemic and there's some sort of mutation, this is probably going to flare up and then die down. So what's going on? But I'm telling you, if you take it from the point of view of just silo thinking, and you just look at HMPV and just the virus and just these cases, you know, then it's probably flare up, die down. But if you take it in the context of a post-COVID era and the weakening of certain patients because of their immune system or pulmonary function, it becomes more problematic. And we know that there were an awful lot of fucking cases in India. We remember all the bodies that were being burned, don't we? All right, so you can't silo think this. Now take it another step. What are some of the other data points that are going on with the national security state? China's already ramped up during the speech for the new year about wanting a unified Taiwan. You think that's going to go really well with the hegemonic power with the United States? No, I don't think so. That whole 9-dash line in that theater, well, guess what? Malaysia is a part of that. Is there something going on here? Is this, you know, is something happening where it's softening up the battle space? This is something that I've been warning people about. You can't just look at the silo. What is happening? Something seems to be happening. Now, if you look at it from the metaphysical point of view, which seems to be low probability, but let's just say there's a metaphysical component to it. Mankind may be plagued. There's a lot of things that are happening in the last 5, 6, 10 years that if you really look back, you know, mankind's not going in the right direction. Don't be surprised that there's some sort of plague type thing happening. Or a series of, you know, we're in tumultuous times. I'm not saying it is all metaphysical, but it's a possibility. If what was written in these texts that are biblical texts is true, then why do we assume that that our society won't be plagued? That's, you know, it would be beyond hubris to assume that. All right, let's see here. Okay, this one was 8 hours ago on News X Live. Why is the Western media not covering this?
It's not having access to 1 million industrial grade products that's so amazing. It's the feeling of knowing you'll find the one you need. Granger for the
HMPV cases in Malaysia have surged by 45% in 2024, reaching 327 cases compared to 225 last year. So, correction to that, it was 2025 that we were talking about, and now we're seeing 225 last year. Health authorities have urged the public to remain vigilant, emphasizing hygiene practices like hand washing and wearing masks amid the rise in respiratory infections that we are seeing. This comes after a similar surge in respiratory illnesses in China, which has sparked global concern. However, officials in both Malaysia and India have reassured the public, stating that the rise in cases is expected during the winter months and there is no immediate cause for alarm. So that's what we're seeing when it comes to the HMPV, that we're seeing that latest development that's coming in.
A lot of cases in China, but they're being quiet about it. Someone needs to do a whole sequencing genome of the isolates in China and in India. What's going on? We know the endemic version from 2001. Nothing changed much between 2001 to now, okay? Now, Trump gets into office on January 20th, assuming he can get into office on January 20th, because he's getting sentenced for paying porn stars on January 10th. But, you know, assume that he becomes the next president of the United States on January 20th, which he should. All right. Why is it that HMPV changes right when he gets into office? Right? Don't you find that a little odd? I suspect there's a change. If these cases are real and there's a surge in Malaysia and in China, all of it at the same time, all right, or roughly at the same time, and cases are just starting in India, this seems to be a little bit more than just an endemic issue. And another aspect to this is, wouldn't Big Pharma want the Western world to hear about this, to kind of like push along the RSV MPV combo that Moderna is developing? Why is the Western media being really quiet right now? There's more coverage on Trudeau resigning in Canada than human MPV. Now, why is that? We're seeing more coverage about a Green Beret vet blowing up a Cybertruck at the Trump Tower than HMPV. Now, if I'm right, and there's a problem, or there was a release, then we're talking about a higher probability of escalation of war in the Asian theater because of Taiwan being attacked by China. I think that's way more important than if some prime minister in Canada resigns because he's incompetent.
Been a huge surge in Malaysia as well. Brian, what are the details that are coming in with the HMPV cases in Malaysia and the surge that is taking place?
Yes, Malaysia has reported a sharp increase in the human metapneumovirus cases, with now 327 infections recorded in the last year, and even a 45% increase happened in the previous year as well. Now, this comes amidst a wave of respiratory illness reported globally, including a surge in China. And even the Malaysian health minister has urged the public to remain vigilant, emphasizing the importance of maintaining.
Okay. There's a surge in China, there's a surge in Malaysia, there's people that are moving around during the holidays. All right. This is an endemic virus that can flare up in a locale and then die down. So it seems to me that if this was a non-problematic virus, I'm just thinking through this, all right? Just pay attention, you know? So there's 327 cases in Malaysia, but there was 225 last year. So forget about the percentage surge of 45%. Just look at just absolute numbers. Because sometimes percentages don't tell the full story. So 327 in Malaysia. An endemic case is at around 225. All right, so if you just looked at that data point, I would say this is just a flare-up endemic, don't worry about it. But when you have the juxtaposition of it, of a problem in China too, at the same time, and not knowing the cases, there's more questions than answers. So we have to err on the side of caution until further data. And again, no one seems to have a full genome sequence of this fucking virus at this moment in time. Compare it to the 2001 variant, and maybe we'll find something about the G protein and that protein that I suspect has mutated.
taking and adhering to safety measures to now curb the spread of respiratory infections. Now they have recommended precautions including regular hand washing, wearing face masks, and even covering the nose and mouth when coughing or sneezing. And despite the spike, also authorities have reassured citizens that such increases are expected during winter months, and even in China, similar peaks and respiratory illness have led to viral images, videos of crowded hospitals with mass restrictions. However, Chinese authorities have also described the situation as a winter occurrence and emphasized that it remains safe to travel as well.
All right, Brian.
Let me find another video here.
Watch why Japanese people eat white bread.
All right, let's see here. Okay, this is CNN News 18, 7 hours ago. Now, I don't know why they call it CNN News 18. And maybe it's like a local affiliate or something. I don't know. They don't look like they're part of CNN.
Welcome back. The Indian Council for Medical Research has detected 2 cases of the human metapneumovirus or the HMPV in Karnataka. And this happened while there were routine surveillance happening. Now, the ICMR has also saying that and has given an assurance that the surveillance systems are robust and there is still no unusual surge in these cases in the country just for now. The details of the detected HMP cases are as below. The first case that was detected in Bengaluru was in a 3-month-old female infant. She was diagnosed with HMPV after being admitted in a hospital in Bengaluru with a history of bronchopneumonia. The baby, in fact, has been discharged after receiving treatment. The second case was an 8-month-old male infant who tested positive for HMPV on the 3rd of January this year after the child was admitted to the same hospital in Bengaluru with a history of bronchopneumonia. The infant is presently recovering. So these are the details.
So,
of the cases
for infants, because their adaptive immune system is not, online yet, that it's not surprising an endemic infection could take hold on an infant or in the elderly. That's not surprising. So the cases in India may be a nothing burger. Okay. What's not a nothing burger is what's going on in Malaysia and China. All right. Because there's no contact. My understanding is there's no contact tracing of the cases of the infants to Malaysia or to China. So these infant cases could be just an endemic thing. But again, this is the reason why it's so important to do the whole genomic sequencing.
Being detected, and this did raise some concern amid the outbreak in China. But the health ministry has said that there is no unusual surge of this virus, and India is closely monitoring the situation as far as HMPV is concerned. There has been many cases of the infection in India, and the Indian government and the Union Health Ministry also giving an assurance there is absolutely nothing to panic. There is no serious concern. There is no surge in HMPV cases just as yet, and that Indian government is very well equipped to handle the situation. Let me go straight across now to Sharon for more on this. Sharon, so words of reassurance coming in from the Union Health Ministry. 2 cases have already been detected. It did, spark some concern given the outbreak in China. But what's the latest that you're hearing from the Union Health Ministry and the central government?
Well, the Union Health Ministry maintains that as far as the HMPV cases are concerned, we are well equipped to handle the situation. And as far as the cases of HMPV infection is concerned, it is not the first time that India will be facing the infection. It has been in the country for years altogether. So we are well aware of the symptoms, how to handle the situation. But of course, if the infection spreads and it is not possible to contain, then it will become a burden on the health facility. So to avoid any sort of such vast infection spread is what right now Health Ministry is monitoring the entire situation. They are in touch with all the states and the UTs. They have asked all the states and UTs that wherever they are getting any influenza-like illness or severe acute respiratory illnesses, those cases need to be reported. There is a ministry dashboard called ISCI. So all the cases need to be uploaded there by each of the states and the UTs. And there are also precautions that has advisory that has been sent to all the states to ensure that they are implemented on ground, like isolating the person who is infected with ILI or SARI infections. And apart from that, any case that is in fact turning positive of HMPV, that also needs to be informed to the residents according to the precautionary measures needs to be taken.
Interesting. Sharon, thank you so much. So can the HMPV virus in China actually trigger a health concern in India? Well, in an interview with News 18, Rajiv Jayadevan, who's the chairman of the Kerala State IMA Research Cell, has said that HMPV is actually very common in young children and that there is no vaccine or antiviral treatment that is recommended. In fact, the expert noted that for most people, HMPV will cause mild symptoms. We have right now the reaction of the
Government of India, and I'm having a meeting at 12:30.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem. The cases that are being announced in China are saying they have severe pneumonia. So are the cases in China different than the cases in India? It could be. The cases in India could be the endemic version.
Information has come, and for any further steps we have to take.
So why is there no clear communication yet from the
that's now being started? Is there going to be testing that's going to be started?
No, I know that I don't know, Selena. Let us not take any decision before coming to a proper conclusion. I mean, of course, the PCR testing is always there for this, but whether that is needed or not is something we have to look at. Whether it is causing any serious, is it a serious public health concern? That has to be first of all decided. Is it really a public health concern? Just because one case has been detected, there are so every you test anybody with some cold, they'll have some virus in there. If you test, I've got a slight cough right now, so I'll be having something. So
I would totally agree with him on this if it was just an endemic situation, which most likely it is in India at this moment in time. But the thing is that there are other data points that suggest otherwise because of what's going on in Malaysia and what's going on in China. This is the problem that I have with, quote, the experts. They have a tendency to have horse blinders almost always. And just by the luck of the draw, all right, their prediction may be correct because they're working with a normally distributed situation and they're just looking at the probability. And this is just, that if you look at it just on average, yeah, this is probably an endemic situation in India. But what's going on in China and Malaysia? Because it doesn't look like it is endemic. So instead of saying, don't worry, you should ask the question, show me the fucking sequence. So I know. This is the problem with these experts. The black swan is happening.
That is something we have to take a decision. Based upon that, then we can take further decisions.
So why is there no clear communication from the center in regards to the testing in NIV Pune?
I don't think we should be simply testing when, unnecessarily how many, for every person with cold and cough, you start testing, then, what is the use of all that?
I don't know the strain of this.
But this is our own, these are all local strains which have been there. Whether China, we should also first know what is the strain that is there in China. That information has to come. So whether do they have it or not, I do not know.
Exactly.
So let us see. I think maybe I can give you more clarity after the meeting gets over. And I will not want to blame anybody. But of course, we all have to be careful and take whatever necessary, which is there for all, any viral or any bacterial diseases. If we are careful, it's better for us. To wash our hands, to maintain some distance, especially if you've got symptoms. Those things are already advisories have been issued.
Sir, as you said, this is not the first in India, but what about Karnataka? Is this the first case that came?
I will not say this is the first case in Karnataka because it has been there for the longest time. Certain percentage of people have this. Every time if you go to a detailed testing, in Baptist hospital, they have tested them and they're private hospital.
How to turn a chilly 50-degree room into a comfortable 73 degrees in 90 seconds. This jet engineer just discovered how.
And they're private hospital. So we can't call it a first case at all anywhere in the country because it is already there. This may have been, they may have tested for this particular thing and it's been detected, that's all. But it's not that it's the first case.
So one of your Congress MLAs, Mr. Raghavendra Vishal, has made a statement today that there isn't enough money for development because of the guarantees. This isn't something.
No, I do not know in what context.
And
he
again,
said, because,
like I
first
said,
of all, people from that region are getting the maximum fund.
This physician in India isn't looking at it from the context. You know what? You had a society that went through a major crisis in the COVID era. And you have a big part of the population in your country that has a weakened immune system and pulmonary dysfunction. So if an endemic thing that starts to spread that seems to be benign, usually in a pre-COVID era, could become not benign in a post-COVID era. And this is the reason why I was saying that the aftershock of the COVID experience needs to be paid attention to. Oh, we just had, it's just endemic. It's just endemic. It was, we had this in 2010. Things have changed since 2010. And again, we don't know if things have mutated in China or Malaysia. What's the sequence? I suspect that if this surge in Malaysia and China is not the garden variety endemic version, most likely the G protein or the F protein, or maybe both, have mutated.
Kalyan Kanaka region, especially compared to other.
We go straight across now to Harish for the latest. We just heard from the Health Minister of Karnataka, Dinesh Kundu Rao, and Harish, the minister clearly has been, updated by the doctors, and he was very measured with his words, trying to allay all fears and concerns, not trying to cause any panic.
I mean, not to cause any panic, but this is another data point. Okay, here's another data point. Okay, it seems to be unrelated, but it's another data point. In the New York Post, that was posted about 11 hours ago, bird flu wipes out 200 snow geese in Pennsylvania, as experts fear something worse is on its way. So you have a surge of MPV, you have a surge of avian influenza. Something is happening. What is it?
Two cases have been detected in Karnataka. So what's next for the state government?
Well, right now they would have a round of meeting with the health officials and experts to understand if Karnataka should start treating this as a virus of concern, and then ask all the labs and hospitals to go in for testing.
That's a great idea. Instead of just saying, maybe this is endemic.
There is acute respiratory influenza, such cases. And at the same time, as the minister is saying, there needs to be a decision taken on whether this should be treated as a public health concern or any other seasonal.
Going back to the bird flu thing, these deadly birds suspected in Allenton, as hundreds of geese dropped dead. So this Allenton must be the city within Pennsylvania.
That perhaps is around, because right now, as the minister is saying, there perhaps is not much information on the strain that's causing a spiky number of cases in China. Only if that is available, then states and the entire health setup in the country can decide if the virus that's in Karnataka, in Bangalore, is the same, and if there needs to be heightened measurement, heightened sense of testing and random testing. That's something that can be done. But right now, as Dinesh Kundu Rao is saying, that information is not available. So right now, they will have to understand if they should start going in for more number of tests, what's the kind of measure or at least information and diktat that needs to go in from the state government and the health department to various labs and hospitals in the state.
So yeah, that's there was one that I saw that This one might be interesting here.
Kulkarbat, thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching Beyond World is One with me, Reksha Saigal, and this is Key News, where we get you the latest from all across the globe. Let's get it started.
3 cases of HMPV virus have been
This is 1 hour.
in the country.
So now
far.
there's
The
3
cases being
cases.
reported in Bengaluru, where a 3-month-old baby has been discharged and an 8-month-old baby still recovering in the hospital. Meanwhile, a 2-month-old infant in Ahmedabad has also been diagnosed with the virus. This marks the first few reported cases of HMPV in India.
Okay,
Now-
so the early reporting several hours ago was an 8-month-old and a 3-month-old in India. Now it's a 2-month-old in India. So now they have 3 cases that have been detected. Now, still, this could be endemic in India only. But, you know, again, what's the sequence?
There is a lot of buzz, a lot of talk around it. People are getting worried. Can this, in fact, go on to become the next COVID-type virus? So let's just try and dispel and you know, for your better understanding, try and put out facts before any kind of you know, there is public if people get worried about it or there is panic. Let's just first understand what is HMPV. Now, this is the human metapneumovirus, a respiratory virus. It has mild to moderate flu-like symptoms, prevalent during the winter, and is transmitted through direct contact. Most people recover with rest and hydration like you do with any flu. Incubation period usually is between
And
3 to 6
90%
days.
of this data that he's referencing is a post-COVID. It's a pre-COVID era data set. No one's talking about the post-COVID dynamics of HMPV. That's problematic. Yeah, normal HMPV pre-COVID was mild to moderate, depending on the patient. So if you had an immune compromised system, it was problematic for you. But there's an awful lot of people that have a compromised immune system in a post-COVID era. So the number of people that are susceptible to a worse manifestation of HMPV has increased in a post-COVID era. And this is the problem that no one's talking about.
Who are most at risk? The vulnerable, young children, elderly at most risk as far as this virus is concerned.
Guess what? In the United
Individuals-
States, there's an awful lot of people now that have pulmonary dysfunction that can fall into the category of pulmonary fibrosis and COPD. That's a fucking fact. Fact. People's immune systems, for many in the post-COVID era, have been weakened. Fact.
Compromised immune systems. Children under the age of 5 particularly are vulnerable as far as this virus is concerned. What are the symptoms? If you are watching this and you know there is somebody around you, so what are the symptoms as far as this virus is concerned? A runny nose, cough, nasal congestion, sore throat. So most of these are, you know, viral infection, flu-like symptoms. Fever in some cases, some severe symptoms could also be wheezing, difficulty in breathing.
See, here's the problem, because it's non-specific. You have someone in your household that's sick, and you're just thinking, it's just the average cold. It gets worse, and then they start to get the bronchitis and the pneumonia, and then you gotta send them to the hospital or to the doctor to be able to, you know, take a look at it. All right, but because there's no treatment for it. There's no treatment for it. There's no antivirals, and there's no vaccine for this. So it has already manifested itself in the patient. And let's say that patient has some pulmonary problem before the infection. It manifests and it's harming the patient more. It takes hold easier. So because it's non-specific, it can take hold in the population easier because people are just saying, ah, it's just the average cold. Now, in most cases, that's true. But something different seems to be happening in China. What is happening in China? It's a big question mark. And people need to keep on saying what is happening in China. What's the sequence? What's the sequence? Because by knowing the sequence, you can have a better understanding of what's going on with the G and the F protein.
Pneumonia, an aggravation of asthma-like symptoms in adults. Now, just to recap, where are we as far as this virus is concerned in India? So far, there are 3 cases which have been reported in India. 2 infants from Bengaluru, one has been discharged, the other is recovering, and 1 infant from Ahmedabad. Let me also underline this, ladies and gentlemen, though, of course, people need to be careful, but there is no immediate panic as far as this is concerned, because so far there hasn't been any casualty or, extreme cases which have resulted in death as far as this virus is concerned. Now, what has the government said on this? The ICMR has said there is no need to worry.
Same mistake happened during the COVID era. People were saying that as the cases were starting, the death cases started to go down, but the infection went up, and they were just going, well, the death rate went down. There's more and more people that are catching it, but they're not dying from it. But the thing is that there are components within the virus that actually shut down your P53 tumor suppressor pathway. Oh, yeah. So just because you don't die from it doesn't mean you're not going to have something later down the road. And oh, by the way, once you catch SARS-CoV-2, you don't clear it. It's in your body forever.
The virus is in circulation for a long time. This is not something which is new, which is taking place. India is prepared to tackle this virus, and no unusual surge in respiratory illnesses which has been reported, at least at this moment. So let me first, in fact, take you to Karnataka, where my colleague Nehal caught up with the health minister. We also spoke to the health minister of Gujarat to try and understand what they are doing after these cases have been reported in both these states.
Are you going to announce any special measures?
No, there will be no special measures because everything is right now, nothing untoward is being seen, and there's no sudden surge of cases or hotspots or any serious situation that has emerged. This is an existing virus, and we are on top of things. We are in touch with Government of India, they are in touch with us, and it is being monitored. So let us not create any panic over this.
But mostly children are getting affected.
That is normally this virus affects children more and aged people more because people with less immunity. It affects them more. But both the children who have been affected, one has already been discharged, one is going to be discharged, nothing to be worried about. And this is a very normal thing. This virus is an existing virus. It has never caused any serious problems so far. And I don't think we should start worrying too much about it. As of now, right now. Thank you.
So the Karnataka health minister after.
Totally agree with him in a normal situation. But are we in normal situations? In a post-COVID era, are we in normal situations? Because you have patients that have compromised immune systems there are more people that have compromised immune systems now. And you have more people in the population around the world that have pulmonary dysfunction. So we're not in the same environment. You can't take the experience from 2010 or even 2015 in terms of dynamics of pathogens in your society and assume it's going to be the same in a post-COVID era. That's wrongful thinking. Now, it doesn't mean that the immune system for most of the population will be permanently disrupted. But there is this transitory long echo that takes place that takes a while for the immune system to heal. Now, the individuals that have the pulmonary fibrosis and the COPD because of the crisis, that's permanent. That's not going away. It's only going to get worse. So the question is there something different that's going on in India compared to China? Or has it, whatever's going in China finally reached India? We don't know.
In meeting with top officials here at Arogya Sabha, the Health Directorate has decided not to issue any special guidelines to check this virus because there is no cluster has been found here. It is not, there is no such at all, and that is why the health minister said there is no need for panic for the general public. All measures are in place. Only they have to keep themselves warm, and those who have poor immunity, they can be attacked by this virus, so they have to be more careful. With camera person Govind Murthy and Halkit Bhai for NDTV.
2 मास का बच्चा जो डूंगरपुर राजस्थान से आया था सारवार के लिए, उसमें ये डिटेक्ट हुआ है और उसको सारवार के अर्थे अहमदाबाद भेजा गया है। तो गाइडलाइन है क्या क्या करना है क्या क्या नहीं। सर्दी और बसंत के मौसम के शुरुआती दिनों में अधिक है।
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching Beyond World is One with me, right?
Okay, let's take a look at this. This is ANC 24/7. This was 10 hours ago. This is specifically talking about China.
So let's open the year by making sure that consumers, constituents, Filipinos get the right information. So posts have been spreading that there's the alleged human metapneumovirus or the HMPV, the outbreak in China is now in the Philippines. Una, ano ba ito? At totoo bang walang outbreak pa dito?
Yes, no, una Karen, no?
Okay,
This is
I got
a virus.
I got to skip that because they're speaking different language and I'm English. All right. 16 minutes ago, India Today. HMPV virus cases in India. This is the infant case, which we know about. I want to know what's going on in China. All right, we know a lot about what's going on in India now, in Malaysia, but what's going on in China? All right, this China virus today news, correct?
Oh my God, I just found out that my data is all over the dark web. So I found this tool that does a scan of the dark web and shows you if your info is being
this is one of those videos that just music and they just recycle it. It's just, there's not good data coming out of China. That's the problem. India. All right, India Today. No, I played that already. CNBC, 2 days ago. Let's play this. This is about China.
纳米比亚刚果布乍得。
Emergency in India. Just bear with me. I'm trying to find something that's a little bit more focused on India here. Or I mean China. Everything's focused on India. All right. There was 5 days ago. Let's go back. All right. There were about 9 days ago. There was a show that came out by China in Focus. That was 9 days ago. Let's play that because we know the cases that have just started in India. Now, these cases in India would have been, I think, after this broadcast. So let's just roll back the time machine here to 9 days ago with China in Focus, just to get an idea of what's going on here.
A telecom company. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Iris Tao in for Tiffany. Our top story, respiratory infections are on the rise in China, plus authorities are stepping up monitoring COVID-19 spread at over 1,000 hospitals. A Chinese Communist Party-controlled telecom company petitions to stay in the U.S. market, but a U.S. appeals court is saying no. Why is a victory for the FCC? Beijing hitting back at Washington over sending military aid to Taiwan. Details on the American farms hit by Chinese sanctions. And the Chinese regime has been using a UN resolution to isolate Taiwan on the world stage. What's behind the strategy?
And once you delegitimize a country, it's a lot easier
Now,
for that country.
Just my take on China in Focus and NTD, I've always viewed it as kind of like a CIA operation, all right? But it doesn't mean you can't listen to it. I just like, but a lot of times they spin it pro-Washington consensus, all right? But is there a gem in here that we can mine up?
To be subsumed by a larger country.
Acute respiratory diseases are on the rise in China. One that's gaining momentum, human metapneumovirus, or HMPV. Chinese authorities are also stepping up monitoring of COVID-19 and flu infections. And Chinese CDC data shows more people are testing positive for HMPV infections, especially those under 14 years old. Authorities did not list total infection numbers on the website. HMPV is a respiratory disease that infects the upper and lower respiratory tracts. Its symptoms appear similar to catching a cold. As of now, no vaccine or medication is available to treat this disease.
Okay, now remember, this is hitting the upper and lower respiratory. And let's say that MPV is spreading and it's relatively moderate in terms of severity for most people. So most people would say, oh, it's no big deal, it's just like a cold. But let's say, remember what I said before, if you have a mild cold for 5 to 7 days, very mild cold, and you clear it after 7 days, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to remodel your tissues. So it takes roughly 3 weeks after you clear the infection to heal your tissues. So that's 1 month where you were sick for 1 week and to heal for 3 weeks. Now you would say, well, I feel fine after maybe the 8th or 9th day, but your body needs time to heal the tissues that have been disrupted somehow. Now, if you start having bronchitis, it takes a little longer. If you start having pneumonia, it takes even longer. So you may be able to breathe and you feel much better, but it takes weeks to remodel the damaged cells. So this MPV starts to spread around the world. And let's say it's just mild infections for the elderly and for the pediatrics. Okay? Summer comes in. and there's more circulation of H5N1 and mutations that have higher affinity, because in the United States, we know that there is a version, D1.1, that has an affinity to the alpha-2/6 receptor, which is in the upper part of the lung, and that over time, it's going to circulate and hone in and become more human, increase the probability of human transmission through these different mutations that take place over time. But the thing is, you have people getting MPV through the next 4 to 6 months. And depending on the severity of the infection, depends on how long it takes to heal those tissues. So there are going to be many people that potentially can contract H5N1 easier because they are kind of, their body is weakened from the MPV. Now, if the person doesn't contract H5N1 and they had HMPV, eventually their body will heal and they'll be okay. But what about large sections of the population in different regions of the world as this avian flu is spreading around the world, that it takes hold in a population where MPV was more severe, in the pediatric patient or in the elderly, and mutations arise and spreads more. So there can be a dynamic that's happening where there is an emergent property of H5N1 manifesting with more mutations because of many people having pulmonary infection from influenza A or MPV or mycoplasma pneumonia or RSV or even SARS-CoV-2. This weakening of the body because of a prior infection while the body is healing could be a reservoir for mutations for H5N1. Where is anyone saying that? Where? There are so many people that have horse blinders on right now. Now, is it a guarantee that's going to happen? No. Could it happen? Yes.
Those cases are mild, though children and those over 65 years old are at a higher risk. Winter and spring are the peak season for HMPV spread. Meanwhile, China CDC is testing a system to monitor COVID-19 and flu infections at over 1,000 hospitals. Officials said more hospitals would adopt the monitoring system once it's more mature. And during the early spread of COVID-19 in China in 2019, authorities silenced doctors who tried to warn their colleagues. When the COVID-19 pandemic broke out in Wuhan about 3 years ago, the city saw a major death toll. At the time, authorities halted domestic
So let's think about
flights
this. Okay, so there's all right, looking at China, and let's compare it to the United States. Right now, China is saying there's 1,000 hospitals that are seeing a surge of SARS-CoV-2 in influenza or influenza-like, which the MPV would fall into. All right, so you have that problem. We also have a surge post-holiday, Thanksgiving holiday, of SARS-CoV-2, RSV, all right, rhinovirus, and we also are having an issue with the norovirus, right? The norovirus is more foodborne and it's highly contagious and it can spread and spread and spread. So that's problematic, but that's more intestinal. That's not respiratory. So the issue in terms of respiratory is RSV, SARS-CoV-2, rhinovirus, which is like a common cold. But again, if you have rhinovirus spreading, which it is in New York, it's creating a reservoir of weakened people where they could be the hosts for mutations for H5N1 if let's say they get rhinovirus and they're not that healthy and they start getting pneumonia. Well, you're gonna have, you can have pneumonia for a while, all right? Especially if it's untreated. So are there gonna be enough patients out there that are gonna have a weakened pulmonary system independent of the SARS-CoV-2 era, just because of a recent infection with a pathogen like RSV or mycoplasma pneumonia or MPV or rhinovirus, even if it seems to be benign? Because there's definitely mutations taking place with D1.1 for H5N1. And when the summer comes, there's going to be more circulation with the animals in the United States. So there's a high probability of honing in to the alpha-2 6 receptor and being able to mutate and be able to replicate at a higher load. See, right now the load with the Louisiana patient was low, but it had an affinity to alpha-2 6. So it has the affinity, it's just low, what they call low frequency, just low viral load, because the replication isn't that great. But when the mutations for the replicase complex improves in humans through just passage to, through circulation, when that improves, boom, you got human-to-human transmission. Human-to-human transmission happens when the viral load increases and the affinity to the alpha-2 6 receptor happens. It's moving in that direction. Now, how long it takes to get there, who knows? The H5N1 will become, the highly pathogenic H5N1 will become, 100% guaranteed, will become human-to-human transmission. 100% guaranteed. The question is when? Is it this year, next year, the following year? We don't know. But it's going to happen.
From Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, but millions of Chinese citizens were still traveling abroad, unknowingly carrying the virus with them. Over 1 million Americans died from COVID-19. A telecom company controlled by the Chinese Communist Party attempted to stay in the US market, but failed. The company is called China Unicom Americas, or CUA. On Tuesday, an appeals court upheld a decision to block.
That's the CIA propaganda, China in focus. I don't trust their broadcast, but like I said, it's important to listen to everything because there's something going on here. Okay, let's see, this was 3 days ago. This was 3 days ago on NDTV Profit.
So what is ClickUp? ClickUp is an all-in-one productivity software where you can manage everything and anything related to your work, your documents, your
hospitals and overburdened healthcare systems. Health experts are especially worried about the spread of the human metapneumovirus, HMPV, a respiratory virus in other parts of the region, afflicting a number of Asian countries. Shamim Zakaria joins us, a senior journalist from Beijing. Shamim, thanks for joining in. What are the details that you are getting about the warning from the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention?
Well, the latest update from the Chinese Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, they have confirmed that yes, there is a surge in the cases of this human metapneumovirus, or HMPV, as it's called in short. But the CDC has reassured that everyone do not need to be worried because it's just like a common occurrence during any flu season. So there hasn't been any rise in the hospitalization rates. Of course, initially there were some rumors about a new strain like causing symptoms. For instance, like fatigue and dizziness among flu patients, but the CDC has clarified that this is not true. The strain circulating is actually the one of the H1N1, which is like a common flu strain, and often it is linked to the HMPV virus. And as usual, the CDC has suggested, basic precautions like wearing masks in public, or disinfecting frequently touched objects, and maybe maintaining like a good personal hygiene. And interestingly, if you look at the data that CDC released, it was actually not specifically about this virus. It was part of like a larger weekly update or monthly update that they released, I think, just yesterday. And in this report, in this press release, that's where only maybe one paragraph where they mention about this particular virus. And if you look at the data for the hospitalization rates, or even people visiting the emergency. So, for instance, for people going to the hospital, the emergencies or the outpatient departments, HMPV is actually the third most common virus in both northern and southern parts of China. So it means that other viruses like the influenza, flu, or even rhinovirus, they are actually causing more problem than the HMPV. And similarly, if you look at the incidence of severe illness happening, so it is also, HMPV is also in the third category. So which shows that flu or pneumonia is like a bigger reason for why people are getting sick as compared to this particular virus. And then if you look at what's happening around, like what interesting is that I only came to know about the situation when the different global news outlets started reporting about it. And then, but if I look at my daily life around in China, it's whether in my office or residential community, I think life is flying completely normal. People are going to work, kids are playing outside, and everything is running smoothly. But yeah, of course, I don't understand why people are worried about it.
This was what was happening back in the first early cases. There was a rumor that was going on with the fever clinics. Something new was around in 2019 in China, in the fever clinics in August. And then it kind of died down. And then it seemed to pop up again in October. Then it died down again. And then it seemed to surge in late November. And then the first isolate was found in December of 2019. Okay. So if we just take that experience, life in China was relatively the same all the way into December of 2020. I'm sorry, December of 2019. From August, where it's suspected that that's when at least some of the cases were starting. And it seemed to die down. And then there was cases in October and died down again. And then there was cases, it seemed like there was, in the fever clinics, there was something going on. Now, again, because the PCR wasn't there yet, it's not known for sure that the cases, the surge was SARS-CoV-2 in August, October, and late November into December. It was definitely confirmed in December because of the sequencing, the whole sequencing, genome sequencing. But the whole genome sequencing wasn't going on in August, October, or November surges. So we don't know, but there seems to be, with other data points, to suggest that's what was happening in China. But life, the point I'm making is life in China was basically the same all the way up to the end of the year of 2019. So just because life is the same doesn't mean anything. It's what's the sequence. That's what's important. Now, I still think that this will be moderate for most people, mild to moderate for most people. Immune compromised, totally different ballgame. And pulmonary dysfunction, totally different ballgame. But I feel as though there is this kind of a domino effect that's happening. People's immune systems are weakened, people's pulmonary function is weakened, people are contracting different viruses that may be benign when you look at it in a silo mentality. But there seems to be a domino effect that's starting to take place. And when you have a juxtaposition of what's going on with highly pathogenic H5N1 it seems to be a recipe for a reservoir to allow for mutations to take place. Nobody's talking.
There's a sense of concern is because probably, it's been just over 2 years where people have, the world has come out of the grip of COVID-19. So whenever anything of this sort happens, then people are always concerned that are we going back into the COVID-like situation. But having said that, I think, in a nutshell, during flu season, this sort of, outbreaks are quite normal, and in life in China is continuing as normal. And what I believe is HMPV isn't something to be worried about, or it is not disrupting our normal lives here.
Well, DrPaulCottrell, do you think HMPV is going to be like COVID? No. But that's the wrong question. The question is, are we creating an environment where H5N1 is going to mutate? And that seems to be the case.
Thanks for that, of course. Shamim only hopes that this doesn't turn out to be even a patch of the scare that COVID was. Now, could be a lot of chatter about this on WhatsApp groups, right? Does this worry you at all? Could this
see what's happening? What's happening to people that are covering this in the mainstream media in India, right? And we don't have anyone in the mainstream in Western countries covering this. That seems to be shocking to me. But they're thinking one-dimensional. They're thinking checkers, all right? Well, MPV doesn't seem to be that deadly for the average person. They're not asking the right questions. They're not understanding that there are these downstream effects that can manifest. There's an emergent property that can happen. And H5N1 seems to be the pathogen to really watch out for. All right, we're not there yet, but it's coming. It's going to mutate. There's 100% sure of that. It's going to mutate. Influenza and HIV mutates a lot. A lot.
Is it a wait and watch scenario?
Still doesn't look like right now happening the markets, but obviously you have to keep a watch. I'm always amazed at why everything comes out of China. I think if you see the context of the Biosecure Act, which probably is not seeing the light now, would be later, I think that the future of the warfare is biological, right? And you have to be very careful on these things. And I've been making this point from a market context and not being very insensitive about it, that I think the healthcare opportunity is big, especially the CDMO space, because the globe is not geared up for disruption in supply chains. Because pharma supply chains are complex. Some of it involves complex chemistry. There are late life cycle strategies, needs years of testing. So it's not like any other product where you can simply shift. It's not like basic commodities or other stuff. So I think this is one opportunity, and I've been making this point. This is as big as the 1999 IT outsourcing opportunity. Chinese share is in double digit. Our share is probably less than 2%. Some of their big names like the Lonza and Cottrell of the world are upwards of $5 billion, in terms of the revenues they do. We are probably 1/4, 1/5 of the larger names we have. So I think that's an opportunity, and so we obviously Divi's has been an old favorite. We really got lucky with Unit, and now Loris has hopefully started doing well. And we're looking at some more opportunities, in this space. One is Tikal, one is Bliss Pharma. Bliss Pharma is actually a different opportunity. It makes suppositories, so medicines which can't be given orally are actually then given physically or inserted. So they are into that segment, which again is a very unique segment to look at. So you have to go level 2, level 3 here. It's a complex space, but there are opportunities in this space.
Okay, Richard, want to switch?
All right, let's find another one here. This was 3 days ago by CNN News 18. But I don't think that this CNN is tied to the American CNN.
Esta temporada, Spectrum Internet pone las apps de streaming y shows favoritos a tu alcance. ¡Cámbiate ya!
Once again is witnessing an outbreak of the human metapneumovirus or the HMPV. According to reports and social media posts, hospitals are overcrowded with infected individuals and crematories also overwhelmed. Some social media users, in fact, claim that multiple viruses, including influenza A, HMPV.
Let me just step back and just give you kind of a psychological point of view here. All right, with the videos in the music, it's kind of like, oh, it's, you know, it's a crisis. It's got like crisis music tones to it, right? But the pictures, you know, they're showing people getting inoculated. They're showing people, you know, they're showing people rolling coffins. So in India, there is a sense of fear. Now, I don't want to spread fear. That is not my purpose. All right. My purpose is to get pissed off at people that have horse blinds and to say that you got to pay attention to black swans. You have to pay attention to the fat tails of the distribution. You have to pay attention to emerging dynamics. You can't think in one-dimensional. All right. So I'm not trying to create fear. All right. But this broadcast from this CNN, CNN News 18. I can see people watching it in India getting kind of scared, all right? Especially with going through the crisis of 2020, all right? I can understand that they're scared. For most people, HMPV, assuming not serious mutations, will fare okay. But I need to ask the question, are there mutations that are more serious that leads to pneumonia quicker, even in the general population, not just the pediatric and the geriatric, where that pneumonia is manifested quicker? We don't know. Are there mutations that are going? I wish China was a little bit more forthright on what's going on. Now the question is, why are they not forthright? Is it because they don't want to create panic in their country? Or is it they don't want to tell the Western world that their population is really sick? Because they're concerned, you know, they're worried about some sort of, you know, military operation that, you know, that may help with the United States and Taiwan. I mean, Taiwan is a hotbed. A lot of people aren't paying attention. Taiwan is a hotbed, no doubt about it. Just as hot as the Middle East. So I don't know. I mean, this particular video kind of seems like it's trying to create fear. Another COVID-like scare. Even the sound, even the soundtrack is like, it's like, you know, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff.
Mycoplasma, pneumonia, COVID-19 are all circulating in China at the same time. There are even claims that China has declared a state of emergency. However, there's no official confirmation to the same. Let's take it point by point. Who is at higher risk given this virus? Young children, older adults, and those with weakened immune systems are at a higher risk of developing severe illness due to HMPV. The next question being asked, what are the complications of HMPV? Sometimes HMPV viewers can cause severe illness that might require hospitalization. Bronchiolitis, bronchitis, pneumonia, asthma, ear infection are a few complications that may develop. What is the HMPV infection to begin with?
This information that they're giving it's like boilerplate stuff. What's really important with HMPV is the shutting down of the innate immune system. With the 4 proteins that I said, the SH protein, the G protein, the P protein, and the M2.2 protein. That's what's important to pay attention to. Because if you shut down the innate immune system and you have a weakened adaptive immune system, you got a big problem.
Let's break down those details. The infection is caused by human metapneumovirus, causes symptoms similar to common cold. That's something you can watch out for. It can sometimes cause pneumonia and bronchitis as well. Children, aged people can get severe symptoms as well, so they need to be a little careful. It also spreads through coughing, sneezing, and shaking hands. So human touch is something that can get you to be a victim of the same. Touching door handles, keyboards can also cause this infection. In fact, no specific treatment or vaccine is available to treat this virus immediately.
Breaking news. New York City has snow flurries.
Limiting the spread is the only way to tackle this disease. Some more questions have been answered for you. The question that is commonly being asked, has the WHO declared an emergency till now? The answer to that is emergency related to the spread of this virus in China. The rest of the world hasn't been declared as yet. There's no official data that indicates a pandemic-like situation so far. The next question being asked, has the virus been detected outside of China as yet? And the answer to that is it's been detected in countries like the United States, Canada, parts of Europe, and some other nations as well. Next big thing being asked, what are the symptoms of this new virus? The answer to that, like I said, symptoms are cough, fever, nasal congestion, shortness in breathing, worsening of symptoms. They also include problems like bronchitis or pneumonia. And when do these symptoms show, or what is the incubation period here? The answer to that is, as experts opine, a person will likely experience symptoms within 3 to 6 days after contracting the infection. There's also a question being asked on what are the preventive measures of the
She's just boilerplate stuff. So I want to go to Mirror now. This was 3 days ago, and the title is New Year, New Chinese Virus Threat. All right, so let's see.
That's wild. Unfamiliar route. People built-in compatibility and the connected confidence of OnStar.
Namaste and welcome viewers to another brand new episode of Mirror Prime. And on this episode, our focus will be on a very alarming development from China. Multiple unconfirmed reports now talk of a fresh virus outbreak originating in China. Before we get into this, let me be very clear. We are not being alarmist right now, nor are we trying to downplay what's happening. We will objectively try to help you understand what's happening and let a panel of experts decode the situation. With that out of the way, let's talk more about this development that's coming in from China. Since the last few days, several videos on social media are going viral. We'll play those videos out on the screens right now. These social media posts show crowded hospitals, people queuing up at medical facilities, hinting at multiple viruses spreading, and also talks of crematoriums under pressure. The virus that is being talked about right now in China is the human metapneumovirus, HMPV, which is very similar.
Now let's think
to the
about this for a
coronavirus
second.
in the way.
We played like 5 different videos from India saying it's endemic and don't worry about it. Then we have some data points that are suggesting that there are crematoriums in China. That doesn't sound like it's just a regular benign HMPV, if that's really taking place. Who knows? Again, China doesn't say much. So this brings up a larger problem that we have. Back in the day, in 2020, right, covering the information was a little bit easier. But now in the world of AI, you don't know if anything is true. People are using AI to create websites and to post news articles. But that news may not be real, but it looks real. What about video that AI creates? Or pictures? Looks real, it's hard to tell. It's getting to a point where not too far into the distant future, all right? we may not be able to rely on any data because they may be all AI driven. Now imagine a world, just imagine. Now this is a philosophical question. Let's step away from pandemics and death and destruction, or at least 5 minutes. Just think about this for a second. The philosophy of this. We're gonna move to an era where you can't turn on your TV and believe anything because all of it could be AI driven. You won't be able to go on X because you don't know if those are real posts. Or maybe it's a real post from a human being, but referring to something that's all AI driven fake news. You just don't know anymore. We're very close to that threshold point that all data has to be questioned. I mean, on everything. There'll be a point where people will be conversing, let's say on FaceTime or whatever, but the technology will be so good that you won't know if it's a real person on the other end. Dangerous world. Maybe maybe that's a way for mankind to unchain itself to, the noise, right? It's not the news, it's the noise, right? But who knows? What's really going on? But I digress. All right, let's get back to India here.
Spreads and also the way the symptoms also show up. While social media is abuzz with speculation, as you would expect, there is absolutely no confirmation on this either by the Chinese health authorities or even the WHO. Unfortunately, our experience from the COVID era is such that we can basically never count on China for any official confirmation.
That's an understatement.
There's definitely some sort of an anxiety with these videos coming out. And amid all this, the Director General of Health Services in India, Dr. Atul Goyal, has also now come out and given a statement. He's asked people not to be worried. He's called this just another virus that can cause cold. So the Indian government is basically now saying that there is absolutely nothing to worry about. Before we discuss about this, let's listen in to what the Indian government has to say.
मेटानियोमा वायरस एक नॉर्मल रेस्पिरेटरी वायरस है जो जुकाम जैसी बीमारी करता है या कुछ लोगों में फ्लू जैसे सिम्टम्स हो सकते हैं, खासकर जो बहुत बूढ़े लोग हैं या बहुत 1 साल से कम उम्र के बच्चे हैं। लेकिन ऐसी कोई सीरियस बीमारी नहीं है जिससे चिंता करने की जरूरत है। इन दिनों सर्दी के दिनों में रेस्पिरेटरी वायरस इन्फेक्शन होते हैं और हमारे हॉस्पिटल्स और इंस्टीट्यूशंस इनको हैंडल करने के लिए तैयार हैं। बेड्स की भी अवेलेबिलिटी है, ऑक्सीजन वगैरह की भी अवेलेबिलिटी है। स्पेसिफिकली दवाइयां चाहिए नहीं, कोई ऐसा बहुत ज्यादा केसेस नहीं आ रहे हैं ना तो हमारे हॉस्पिटल्स
46 minutes ago. 46 minutes. All right, here. 46 minutes ago.
Can you turn the music off?
52 minutes ago, it was posted on News 9 Live. 52 minutes ago, News 9 Live. It's hard to say. 6 MPV cases detected in India. Now, a couple hours ago, it was only 3.
George? Can you get that? George.
In cases of HMPV is already starting to create widespread panic with fears of a potential global health crisis. As the virus spreads rapidly within China, the world is left in dark about the extent of the breakout. The crisis evokes memories of what happened when COVID-19 was in initial stage. China failed to disclose the enormity of the situation.
All right, so there's 2 cases. I'm going to butcher their names here, but there's 2 cases in Bengaluru. 2 in Chinane, 1 in Gujarat, and 1 and Kolkata.
It failed to disclose information to World Health Organization, which it controls now because Americans have exited it. And ultimately, the pandemic consumed 6 to 9 million lives worldwide. A similar silence is now being observed as HMPV spreads, raising questions whether this is merely a flu-like illness or is it a result of virus mutating, or as in the previous case where the Wuhan lab did not allow access to the Western scientists, was part of a washed up Chinese lab experiment.
Yeah, that's where I'm focusing on right there.
Is yet to make a statement on the outbreak. And it's consistent in its position, which is that it is watching the situation closely. Now let me introduce my panel, Dr. Sunila Garg, advisor to ICMR, and Dr. Vinay Kanchu, senior consultant, respiratory and critical care in the Apollo Hospital. Thank you, both of you. Let me begin by asking one question to both of you. Dr. Garg first. How seriously HMPV is supposed to be taken?
Depends on the patient.
One thing I like, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And I'd like to say that when we talk about human metapneumovirus, it predominantly is affecting respiratory system, but it is known since long, since 1958 as early as possible. And from 2001, we had, a cluster of 28 cases in Netherlands. So since then, across the world, we say that, we have number of cases and predominantly these cases are milder in nature. Now you see the concern is because that we have huge number of cases with all the facilities being overcrowded, full hospitalization being there.
This is a great point that she's making. All right, you got about 10 cases here, 50 cases there. Last year in Malaysia, there was 225. Then all of a sudden there's, and that was the whole year, and then all of a sudden there's a surge of cases of 327. There's also the surge of cases in China. Why all of a sudden a surge? Why? Again, there's more questions than answers with HMPV.
In China, and which happened during COVID times also, and which, the organization and Chinese people never took it seriously. So that is why we are worried. That is the reason of worry. But as far as India is concerned, I'd say that, when we talk about 4 cases, there will be large number of, subclinical cases of what we call it as iceberg phenomena. So we don't have to be worried about, but we need to be cautious and we need to be watchful about the cases which are coming with respiratory problems. That is important. So, testing, treating, tracking becomes the need of the hour, and people will say, why testing? Because we need to monitor the disease. We have to put it on the IDSP platform as to how many symptomatics we are getting in terms of respiratory infections and all. Because you see, if we have to see, the symptoms are like that of any respiratory infections like cough, cold, when we call a running nose, or we say wheezing, or so like that, or fever. So like that way, we have got similar type of.
I find it really suspect on why very little is being covered in Western media. Why? Why is that? Very little. Especially when Moderna could make a lot of money because they have in development an RSV and an MPV vaccine. Why is it not being published in Western news? Why?
So, symptoms as that of respiratory infections, we need to be watchful, we need to be careful, and we need to follow all the precautions, but at the same time, we need not panic. That is important. And all the necessary instructions have been given to the healthcare providers, and the need is now to create awareness till the last mile. That is important.
Okay. Dr. Kanchu, my question is in context of COVID. Now, the COVID has weakened the immunity A lot of people I knew, they had mild infections. They undergo longer infestation of the same infection.
This is exactly the thing that I have been saying for 5 years. Finally, a reporter is asking the right question.
Longer one in terms of the impact it has on lungs. So in context of long COVID, the virus mutation, what are the precautions people should take? Because lives have changed. We have examples of people just dropping out once their exercise is over. A doctor says that long COVID has impacted the heart. I'm sure that it must have had similarly impacted our lungs also, madam.
See, at the moment, what information we have regarding the HMPV virus, which is a human metapneumovirus, if we go by the past information, this is just a respiratory virus which remains confined to the respiratory system, which means that it doesn't go to the other systems. It is unlikely to cause long COVID-like symptoms, which is a good news, of course. But this is all based on the past information and the studies we have on human metapneumovirus. Now, since there is a surge in the number of cases, which is coming through the social media and videos which we have seen from China, which is a news which is still to be corroborated. There is no official statement from the Chinese government. Till there is further information, until we know if there is a new mutation which has happened into this virus, which is coming up, we cannot say anything very, very specifically. The best way possible is to prevent it.
So that's the end of the video there. But it's really important to understand that it's really important to understand that there are dynamics, in a post-COVID era that people need to pay attention to. We're walking in a realm of the unknown. All right. What? Scroll down and see if there's some other stuff. The problem is that we're not getting a lot of information out of China. That's the big problem. What happened back in December was that we were able to look at a sequence, and by looking at a sequence, you could understand the dynamics, if it's problematic or not. If there's not, too much mutation on the fusion protein, on the G protein, I probably would say, yeah, don't worry about it so much. But without knowing, it could be problematic, especially with no one really divulging any real information out of China. All right, this is called Impact. This is interesting. Impact AI News TV. I wonder what I've never seen this before. So this is 4 minutes long. So let's just play it to see what it says here.
The surge in respiratory.
Yeah, so it's an AI-driven news.
Good day. Beijing is refuting widespread social media reports suggesting a surge in respiratory illnesses, including the human metapneumovirus, or HMPV, within China. Online claims describe overwhelmed hospitals and crematoriums, with some posts even alleging that China has declared a state of emergency. However, the National Health Commission of China firmly denies these assertions, labeling them as unsubstantiated. According to Reuters, while there has been a reported increase in HMPV cases, particularly among children under the age of 14, the situation does not align with the alarming social media narratives. HMPV symptoms closely resemble those of the flu and other respiratory infections, with common indicators including cough, fever, nasal congestion, and shortness of breath. In severe cases, complications such as bronchitis can arise. Health experts, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), emphasize that HMPV poses heightened risks for specific groups, notably young children under 5, older adults over 65, and individuals with weakened immune systems. To mitigate risks, health authorities recommend the following precautions. Wash hands frequently. Avoid touching your face with unclean hands. Wear masks in crowded spaces. Stay home if you're unwell to prevent spreading infections. The reported uptick in HMPV cases coincides with China's
All right. Let's see if I can find one more before we. I just wish there was just better information coming out of China. God. Let's see here. There you go. Yeah, I don't know. If all the news is coming out of India, or most of it, I should say. Yeah, most of the news is coming out of India. All right, there's really not much more that I can add to this through the cursory view of the videos. And without having a fully sequenced genome analysis done on the G protein and the F protein, and some of the other important proteins that shuts down the immune system, we're kind of flying in the dark here with MPV. Now, my gut take on this is this. My gut take is, for most people, it's going to be mild to moderate, assuming you're healthy. All right? Assuming you don't have a compromised immune system, and assuming that you don't have pulmonary dysfunction. Most of the people that are going to be susceptible will be immune compromised, pulmonary compromised, geriatric, or pediatric, young pediatric patients. The worry I have is that if this spreads, and there's no data that I know of that's saying what the R naught value is, if this spreads and it takes hold, then there is more probability of weakened immune systems, weakened people because of just a mild infection, that as we go into the spring and the summer months, depending on how long this thing lasts, it's adding to the probability of having certain patients susceptible to H5N1. Now, when they contract H5N1, it's probably going to have the high affinity to the alpha 2/3 receptor, not the alpha 2/6 receptor. But over time, it will get worse. So we already have a version of a higher affinity to the alpha 2/6 receptor from the Louisiana patient. So it's already floating around. All right. So it's just low frequency. But when the mutations take hold that allows it to have higher frequency, then you're going to have a higher probability of H5N1 being human-to-human transmission. So it's possible that a combination of sicknesses like RSV, MPV, the mycoplasma pneumonia, other viruses like rhinovirus or even SARS-CoV-2, creates a situation that allows for further mutation of H5N1. H5N1 is going to be very problematic when it's human-to-human transmission. But here's the saving grace of it. So if you compare it to HMPV, mild, there's no evidence of like world pandemic kind of situation with HMPV. That's good. The bad stuff is that there's no vaccine for it, and there's no treatment. There's no viral treatments for it. Right? Now that doesn't mean that treatments can't be figured out, but it's just nothing there on the shelf right at this moment. So if it becomes worse and very problematic, we don't have any treatment yet. right? With influenza, if the H5N1 takes hold, the highly pathogenic H5N1 takes hold and it goes to human-human transmission. Yes, there are known antivirals and known monoclonals, and Moderna is, again, and I'm not a big fan of Moderna at all, it is also working on a H5 and H7 combo vaccine that they received funding from HHS for, I think, about $178 million. So they're already working on it. All right. So you have antivirals that potentially would help with H5N1, monoclonals, and Moderna's working on a vaccine for it. But the thing is that when people are taking these vaccines, you know, it can cause injury. It can cause problems. So there's vaccine injuries that do happen in the population. The question is what would be the percentage of the population that has those? So the point I'm making here is that H5N1, when it goes human to human transmission, you're going to see pandemonium. You know, not just pandemic, it's going to be pandemonium. Very similar in terms of social dynamics, the way people behave, to like SARS-CoV-2 during the COVID years. But I don't think that it will be as bad in terms of deaths with human-to-human transmission at H5N1. I think the death rate would actually be low. Part of the reason is just that the antivirals are supposed to help with this. So if that holds true, then you're probably seeing a death rate that is maybe, you know, I suspect that if H5N1 goes fully human-to-human transmission with high frequency, that you're probably going to see about 250,000 deaths in a year. All right. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility, because approximately, depending on the flu season, you can have deaths that are about 20,000 to 50,000 a year. So if you take the high number of 50,000 deaths in the United States and just do a factor of 5, you get to about 200, you know, you're at 250,000 a year. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. So, but I don't think it's going to be as bad. But the thing is as this is happening, the social dynamics, the power grab from the HHS, the fear in the population, the willing to give up civil liberties for safety, you know, will happen. All right. So there's multiple ways of seeing this as a crisis. There's a crisis of health, and there's also a crisis of wealth, because it's going to affect the economy. And it's a crisis of your constitutional freedoms. So it's important to look at all these different, these are lessons learned from the COVID era. I've said this 100 times. And, you know, this is the aftershock. You know, it's not exact. We didn't know exactly how the aftershock was going to manifest itself. Parts of it is just your immune system going through tumultuous times. Part of it for some patients is, you know, long COVID and the manifestations of this, or weakness of the pulmonary system. Another part of the aftershock is other pathogens roaming around, being able to get into the human body easier because of a weakened immune system. Right? This is actually an element of the AIDS-like syndrome that I was talking about. That you can take endemic pathogens that seem to be mild in a pre-COVID era they're more problematic in a post-COVID era. That's part of the aftershock. So, but my gut feeling with MPV is that it's going to be mild, but if it spreads, you're looking at populations that will be healing from infection. And so they're more susceptible to a H5N1 infection. And if more people are susceptible to a low frequency alpha 2 6 receptor affinity for H5N1, then eventually you're going to have high frequency H5N1 alpha 2 6 receptor affinity. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I'm going to shut this down for this video. Thank you for the ones that were listening on X Spaces. It's important that you help support my work by following me. Make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Why follow me on all these channels? Because I get strikes on YouTube. And I do my live streams and I do my premieres, and it's whack-a-mole. All right. So also follow me on X and GETTR. All the links are in the description of this video. And just follow my lead. I can't tell you what to do to improve your immune system in this video because of the censorship. I will be doing it in the next video. But the thing is, just pay attention, follow my lead. HMPV is worrisome, but don't get panicked. Don't, buy 10 years of toilet paper, okay? Don't worry, all right? Just ask questions and just pay attention, all right? It probably will just kind of die down. That's most likely what's going to happen. It's probably going to die down. But the thing is, this is a close call. Just like how, during the 2024, it was a close call with H5N1. And it's going to get a closer call. It's going to be more problematic in 2025. So with these close calls, it's really important to take the advantage of it and boost up your immune system. I've told in many videos how to do that. If you don't do it, it's your own fault. But take this opportunity to boost up your immune system. Take this opportunity to get healthier. Now, I have this whole way of doing it, so just pay attention. It's holistic, it works, and you'll get other benefits out of it too, not just boosting up your immune system. But the point here is that a key feature of MPV, of H5N1, of SARS-CoV-2, of RSV, of Mpox, a key feature is people's endocrine and immune system are dysfunctional. You need to correct it. When you correct it, you're lowering the probability of you succumbing to severe disease. So just pay attention and do what I tell you to do, and it will be okay. But if you think you know better, most likely you don't. Thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe to all my channels. You can also help, because this is a free video, and I wasn't able to plug any of my products because of censorship on YouTube. Help support these free videos by donating on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It's through the donations and the paid membership on Patreon that allows me to do thousands of videos for free for you guys. Now, I think I gave you insight that you're not getting anywhere else. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.